Are you ready?
I got confused on if I said 5 or cinco, and then I got stuck in my brain for a second. I apologize for that one.
They're the same number.
Yeah, I know, but am I saying it in English or Spanish most of the time? And I forgot that. I had to look it up. I don't know.
You had to look it up.
Yeah.
Weeb Club Wikia.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Weeb Club. Weekly. This is episode 41.
Yeah.
It is the 13th smallest prime number. Yeah.
Is that it?
That's all I see.
41 sucks.
It's the sum of 2 squares, 4 squared and 5 squared. Yeah, nothing super interesting is what it looks like.
Well, next one is an interesting number at least. Even if for pop culture reasons.
Yeah, it'll be sick.
All right. So yeah, we didn't record last week due to scheduling issues, and other news that I'm just gonna get off the bat or announce right now is I've got moving stuff in progress, so I won't be able to record next week or for likely a few weeks after that. I really have no idea how long it will take, if it'll even work out. So
for those who said, hey, this Vindy Nun dynamic in these Sonic episodes and Naruto episodes that are fucking dead is good. When are they gonna do stuff just the two of them? We will be trying to continue the weekly. Hopefully none responds to me when I pester him to record, but we will try to do a 2-person weekly for a little bit because I think it'll be fun.
Sad.
I'll listen if you guys actually upload them.
Okay, well, that's just fucking hateful.
Maybe I'll be vengeful and not do it because you guys didn't listen to the Weeb Club is Canceled episode.
I listened to like 5 minutes of it.
There was only so much of that I could take.
It's a good episode.
Of the
It's
BSA,
smart, funny, and entertaining.
maybe. Of the
Well, if you could
Club?
listen to the BSA, you have problems. And
Wasn't there someone who said that they fucking archived it all?
Oh God!
I thought I remember hearing that, but I could be wrong. I could be making that up.
It might have been like a threat, an empty threat.
It might have been someone saying, "I wish I had downloaded."
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know who it is.
I can guess.
I fucking know, but they don't have everything. But I know
Okay.
who has some BSA episodes downloaded. But I'm not going to say their name because it's too powerful.
No, yeah, I
Can
remember.
you message me it?
I'll type who I'm pretty sure.
You should be able to know just through context. I feel.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like, who else is going to have be that into?
Yeah. He definitely has some though.
I don't think he has full episodes though.
Well,
no, because he would.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking god, this guy.
No, he showed me what he used to clip things, and it doesn't. It's just like it basically just goes. It pulls up the entire YouTube upload, and then you select like a minute or 5. I think it goes up to 5 minutes max or something. I forget how. It's definitely not more than 10 though. He doesn't download the entire episode.
Okay, so all right, interesting. Well, all right. Anyway, so
I mean, he still has some bad clips anyway, probably. So
Comment.
does the job anyway.
yeah. So first is the So Bad It's Good patron voted topic episode last weekly.
Yeah.
Natty has something for you, Craftsdwarf.
I haven't read any of the comments yet. I kind of forgot.
Go to Natty's first.
Crafts Coca-Cola is my lifeline. Now say Gamavunta.
No. That's not.
I
what it
wish
is.
you accidentally let it slip. When
I
you were
would have
reading it.
lost it if you had to censor it because you.
Well,
fucking...
first I was gonna just say nothing, but then I realized it would be funnier to say Gamavunta.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let me see. I think there was one I wanted to say. There's one I wanted to, I think, make fun of, but I don't remember where it was. I remember reading one and be like, someone said something fucking stupid.
Okay, these top comments are funny. First comment: we'll post more updates as I watched. I did not continue watching. Because we were talking about, like, because people leave comments in multiple replies or one reply, so he decided to leave multiple replies, and that's what he left.
But that's how we know that he definitely watched the whole fucking episode. He just thinks it's funny.
I thought it was funny.
I guess I can bring up Luna's comment where he says, one, thoughts on the use of the term guilty pleasure. And then I'll just bring up two first, which is this Nunmanji MF goes on about rom-coms being better than Battle Shonen, yet still refuses to catch up to the best rom-com in the game. But then Nun did catch up since then to the best rom-com.
And I was wrong to do so.
No, because now you're going to read. No, because next week's going to be so fucking good. The chapter comes out just on like Mondays or Tuesdays. Or the week after that. It's going to fucking be so fucking pog. And you're going to read it when it comes out. And me and Luna are.
It was not the time to catch up.
Because it's so fucking pog right now. But yeah, for you should have waited a couple weeks. Maybe another month. But oh my lord, it's so pog.
A week or two minimum.
It's so pog.
Excellent comment by Nunmanji. Wait, fuck, I already fucked it up. Never mind. God damn it.
Were you I don't know why. Say, who are you? But then you just stopped out. We're going to say, like, you were going to, like, great comment by Nunmanji. Another banger from Nunmanji, H. Another banger, O. Another banger, and just, like, go the whole way through and spell it out.
I give up.
I didn't see any more comments to reply to on the weekly.
No, there are a few people that were talking about the funny book. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I saw those, but week? I couldn't.
No,
you talked about Stormlight Archive last
I remember what it was. I remember the one. I see it. Segus adds and says, also, I'd explain why I thought you swapped roles, but you'd say it's too long to read, so just settle for you let none get the better of you. I remember reading that, and I remember that comment came out, and I read it, and, like, something fucking clicked in my brain. And I was like, I'm never letting anyone say anyone on this podcast got the better of me ever again. I'm going down tooth and nail from now on. I'm not just ending it because it's funnier to pretend to be. Look, it's funnier to pretend to be upset about Nunmanji laughing about something else, and it's way funnier to then be passive aggressive and be like, "Oh no, it's fine. I didn't care about talking about it anyways," right? But apparently, if that's gonna be none getting the better of me, I'm going full steam ahead anytime from now on. I remember what that was, yeah. All right, the MCU backlog
has very few comments, but I do want to thank Master Spoon for he put up the because I totally forgot because we ranked the MCU and we said that we would just put it in the comments because just visualizing it as a list that we read out isn't very easy. So I actually haven't checked to see like because I don't know if the one that I guess I don't know. I guess we just posted our list somewhere, or maybe you just maybe you just listed them out from us reading them out.
That's definitely what he did because for mine, if you notice, he has in quotes "Snore the Dork World."
Oh, right.
Because that's the only thing I call that fucking movie.
Okay, yeah. So that made more sense. I was just thinking because I was gonna post them because we wrote them out in our group chat for the Weeb Club, and I was thinking, yeah, that's what he did. Wait, hold on, how did he get those? But no, that makes more sense. My brain isn't working right now.
Okay, I have a question. For you, Craft, since you edited this, since it went up on the channel, which means you're obviously the one who edited it because you're the only one who fucking edits anything anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm absolutely calling myself and Nun out, by the way. We are being bad. But thankfully, you take a break, and then it's entirely on Nun and I. So, but there were two comments that said I was sleepy or snoring. Was I, like, yawning 24/7 in that? Or did I, like,
I think you yawned a few times, and there was a couple times I couldn't really remove it, but it's not like you literally passed out, but I think you yawn even during normal recording sometimes.
People don't know.
Especially
sorry, you go.
Especially when we record later because, which sometimes we have to, right? Just time zones. I'm in the earliest time zone. So for me, even if we record to like 10, that for you guys, that's like, for Nun, that's 1 a.m, right? And for you, that's midnight. So, and when you have school or work, then that's not exactly early, right? So, or that's not, that's fairly late. So, so if you're yawning, then I'm just like, yeah, I understand because it's a time zone thing. But I think there were maybe a couple, like, because if you yawn and you're saying something, I can't remove that, right? You know, or if it gets responded to, or maybe I just missed some.
Well, especially those backlogs, because a lot of times we'll record the weekly and then record the backlog.
Right, so you use all your energy, and then you're tired.
And then because like I used all my energy, and the weekly's normally just more high energy because we're kind of bouncing around from thing to thing, and they're normally more exciting. The backlogs, when we're just talking about something, I start, it's like it like kind of settles in, and I just yawn a lot anyways. Like I yawn all the fucking time. I don't know. I guess I'm just constantly tired, but I literally am always yawning.
No, I think you just hate everybody else and just keep yawning when
I'm so bored all the time.
It's like when you kept laughing when I was trying to talk about my pick.
All right, this fucking guy.
Gaslight speaks. All right, Reddit.
Did we talk about this MatPat one last time? I think so, right?
That was the most recent one that we talked about.
Haven't
so there's
read
this
but is this
One Piece
true?
fan art. Well, not just One Piece fan art.
Is that true, Craftsdwarf? I'm not current.
Yes, it's true.
Based and true.
And then there's a regrets clip that I didn't watch, but I did remember it upon seeing it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that happened."
Describe it to me.
It's Chucky remembering his dead mom.
Oh, Pog.
You know, so possibly a bit emotional. I haven't rewatched the clip, but you know. Just like there was a regrets comment on the weekly too, because we just brought it up.
Did we talk about the thing where like in the episode, was that when we talked about like what the fuck is his name? Never mind. I don't even know if this is from the weekly or if it's just something I saw.
I remember bringing up fucking Tommy Pickles trying to kill his brother Dill, but that's because that movie can't come up without me bringing up that scene.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Who wants to introduce the topic?
I guess I came up with it. I think. It was kind of.
You did come up with it.
Yes, because a little while ago, a few weeks ago, Korea Gaming put out a video on I think it was called like why video games still aren't considered art. And he was very specifically referring to Roger Ebert's infamous quote, where he's boomer take that video games will never be art or stuff like that. And he sort of had some interesting observations. And I guess that sort of led to me like, hey, this is an idea that we've tossed, because we some of the weekly topics have been like establishing some of our ideas on something. Like last week, it was, we were talking about the so bad it's good thing. So, we've been wanting, so one that we've had in mind for a while, I guess, was, just what is art, very broad topic. And, you, Vindy, also read Blue Period as a way to kind of like,
And I am going to bring up Blue Period because there's a specific part in it that I think is it's like a specific moment where a character is explaining something to another character that I think is so fucking good. It like helping understand what art is and what things can be art and why certain things are art.
Mm-hmm. We'll definitely talk about Blue Period, but I guess to summarize what I remember from the Korea Gaming video is that I thought it was interesting some of the points he brought up, because he compared Last of Us and like the FromSoft games, and how like The Last of Us has a very specific like narrative experience, but then you could actually change a lot of, like, you can change your difficulty, you can change disability settings and stuff like that. Like you can the experience of playing the game you can change, but the narrative and the story is still the same, and that's something that they the developers wouldn't don't want to compromise on. Like they even there's like guides, because if you don't want to kill the dogs, but they make there's even a developer quote saying that like they don't want to remove the dogs from the game because of like what the story is supposed, like how the story and what the story says about violence and such. So like you having to potentially kill. Was he
talking about Last of Us 2?
I don't, whichever one had dogs. I don't remember. Probably Last of Us 2.
The first one really has dogs.
Two has dogs because they're a whole ass mechanic, because they start sniffing you out. It's fucked.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Right, and then
because
those
dogs. Not because I hate killing
they're easily
dogs.
The most annoying.
I'll fucking stab a dog in a video game.
Okay,
I don't give a fuck.
I was wondering, because I remember when we were watching Jujutsu Kaisen, you and what had a reaction to like one of Fuchigoro or what that was his name, right?
It's sad. Look, when they start whining and shit, it is sad as fuck. But look, if it's between me and finishing, I will fucking dude. You've seen I Am Legend. I will Will Smith the fuck out of those dogs.
I haven't, but I got the reference.
But still, I say fuck those dogs because
for gameplay reasons.
They're so hard. They sniff you out. Fuck those dogs.
Right, but then the counterpoint, or the not counterpoint, but the alternate example he gave was the FromSoft games, where they're like the developers very much want the experience of playing the game to be the same for its players, right? Like if we both beat the same boss in Elden Ring, for example, like I wasn't like, oh well, were you playing on easy mode, or like no, we fought the same boss and we might have had different approaches, like with how strong our weapon was or what magic we were using, but they're the same fucking boss, right? Like, and that, doesn't change, right? So, and it just sort of giving examples of like how these kind of things affect, how like the game is perceived, and then also, bringing up the response to, or Ebert's follow-up, where, because he admitted that he actually doesn't play very many games. It's been a while since I saw the video, but it was definitely interesting. And yeah, it got me, hey, this is something we could do for a video topic. So yeah, I guess, what is art?
So, okay, I have an answer that I am very happy with.
Okay, tell the class.
Which is, I think art is any kind of, it's any time you have a sender sending a encoded, like, message, to an audience, right? So the reason I say encoded message is because I think something, I would say like a news broadcast, right, isn't necessarily art, right? So you can't just say something that's sending a message, because a news broadcast is sending a message, but I think that message isn't encoded, right? The message is the message is very much, they tell you word for word what they have to say, get it done, and like get out. And I think in any other form, that message, like in any other, like anything you look at as art, a lot of times, even if it's said to you directly, that message is encoded, whether it's in a story, or in maybe like just like the emotions you feel in the painting or something like that. And then the only thing I have to say on top of that is like the message, because like I think sometimes when you say message, people can get caught up in thinking that a message has to be like this theme, right? Like it has to be like, oh, Naruto being about like hard work or something, right? Like it has to have like this a message to it, but I don't think that's the case. I think a message, and this is something that Blue Period talked about really fucking well. A message can be like, how good the painter is, and they're kind of just showing off how good they are at painting, right? For a video game, the message could just legitimately be, look at how fun it is to do X, right? And that could be like the message that is essentially encoded that the sender is trying to give to the viewers, like, look how fun this is, or look how good I am at painting, or even like with music, right? Maybe sometimes Tchaikovsky didn't want to make you feel something. He just wanted you to know that he was sick at the piano. You know what I mean? So that's my personal definition.
I would probably say art can be anything that that either expresses a message or is attempting to convey emotion through the use of someone's creativity. I would probably say it's something like that. Not a topic that I think about like a whole lot, because it's like I don't go around denying certain things of being art, so I don't make up like this random definition to exclude things. But like I don't really think like what is art is like a super has to be a super complicated thing necessarily. Like I feel like when people try to like define art, sometimes it's to just exclude like games, or to exclude like Marvel movies or something. But,
yeah.
Like, you can think something's bad and still acknowledge it as art.
No, I agree that I don't like exclusive definitions at all, which, again, to bring up another boomer elitist take is, Martin Scorsese's, the MCU isn't art or whatever, right? Which you just reminded me of. Like, it's so uninteresting. Like, why would, especially like, like Ebert or these people who are, notable in their fields, and, right? Like, one could say like Roger Ebert's reviews are art. Right. So like, but and then just being exclusive and elitist about it is just so like narrow minded. Like art can be a lot of things. So why why use a definition of art that files things into holes instead of open up the discussion, I guess.
I just think the answer to why is just like, because that's what everyone does when they reach a certain point in their life and new technology comes along, right? Like, it's super easy, right, for us to be like, oh, well, I'll never do that. But motherfucker, when I'm 60 years old and I'm like nearing the end of my life and like some new thing comes out, am I really going to want to fuck with that when like I got all my own shit and I can just like discredit that and feel good about myself? Like, probably I'll do that. I'm lazy as shit. I don't want to fucking, learn whatever, like VR 6.0 or some shit.
You could also just say you don't care.
No, because I'm old, so I have the moral obligation to act like I'm superior to everyone.
You can't talk to Craftsdwarf about this. He's closer to being old than you are.
Yeah, I know, but I'm explaining
Craftsdwarf knows what's up.
My thoughts.
Oh my god, I'm so touched. He didn't just call me old. He just said I'm close to being old.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
I mean, I just think that's like what happens, right? Is just like people get old and they get jaded, and then they start discrediting things that they don't understand because they don't want to understand it because they think it's too complicated, or they I mean, the other thing obviously with video games is, right, I think it's almost understandable, specifically with video games, where like people I think who were around and maybe gave video games a shot during like the Atari,
yeah, it was fucking right, Pac-Man,
like the NES,
and fucking, Space Invaders, right?
And so they got this idea of what video games were, and I mean, I would still look back and say that even the like old, like even like Pong or Pac-Man in ways like it is art as well, but I think it's much easier to look back and see that than at the time you see it, and it's like I can see someone saying, yeah, this isn't really that much of a thing. It's like a small little thing to waste your time on, and then just deciding to ignore it, and then they ignore it for 40 years.
Yeah.
And now it's completely different, but they never really paid attention, so they don't actually know what it's like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting, because, like, if you did play games back then, I feel like you could make the comparison to, like, games as time wasters to being, like, kind of like board games. Like, nobody looks at a board game and says, this is art, this is raw expression. And, like, I could see how someone who would play a very old game would kind of, like, think like that. Like, I understand why it would make sense that it's just not, like, this form of expression to them, because nobody looks at a board game that way. So, I just don't see how, like, how someone would recognize how a game is different if they're talking about older games.
Because, like, really old games I want to just point out is, like, because going back to Vindy's point about, like, how technical excellence in itself can be, a message, at least by, your definition, or even just, like, it can lead to other, like, right, like, one thing I always think about is that even if a technical, like, thing of note doesn't have any meaning in the original context that it's used from, some other artist can steal that and give it meaning in their own thing. Like, it,
right.
So something happening for the first time can still lead to, something else later on, right? Which is why it's still, like, notable or something can be notable or important. You were going to say something, Vindy?
Oh, I mean, technical excellence could be the point. It can be the reason for something. It can be...
Yeah, and if that's... I guess I was more, like, thinking, like, if that's not acceptable as a message for you, for someone, rather than, someone else can do something with it is also kind of what I was saying. But I was also going to point out two older games that, like, where, like, because I think, like, as far as technical stuff goes, Tetris is incredibly, like, just simple and elegant as a game. Like, I think Matthew Matosis had the point where it's like an alien could understand Tetris.
Because they don't know what ghosts are.
I forgot.
It's the greatest. Can I please quote? It's my favorite, like, summation
out of context
video
Matthew
of all
Matosis.
time.
Yeah.
No, it's just the point of the video is that if aliens came to Earth, they would Tetris would be the only game that they could understand, because they couldn't understand Pac-Man because aliens don't know what ghosts are.
Not even just ghosts, but fruit is, like, that's what the fuck is that, right? Like, they wouldn't inherently understand that ghost bad, fruit good, right? Like, there's a cultural thing in Pac-Man that you need to know, where in Tetris it's just they're fucking blocks that vanish, right? Like, you could right, and that's interesting. The other one I think it's Missile Command, where it's like you are basically shooting down missiles and trying to keep them from destroying towns. That game was made during the Cold War, and I think it's kind of fucking obvious what the, like, because in the original game there is no winning. you just stop the missiles until you can't stop them anymore. Like, there's a very obvious message there regarding like war, and especially like when you think about how it was made during the Cold War. And I think I remember hearing about it from an extra credits video where it was like the developer was thinking of like his hometown and two of the towns that were near it when he made the game, right? So it is like, so when you think of it, like, here's again a very simple game from the same time period as Pong and Pac-Man that is also like an anti-war message. Like, that's just like that it can get across with these very simple mechanics and just a little bit of outside context, right? So it's like, and so going back to, you know, the idea of these, you know, we're making up a guy, an old man who just like played these simple video games when they were new, and was like, oh, did they dismiss that as a form of entertainment, and probably found it entertaining. And then, like, you know, decades later, there's a higher level of literacy both going into like playing the games and making them that they don't necessarily understand from the outside, so they dismiss it wholesale, right? You know, because like, you know, like, yeah, again, even these older games, like looking back, like, we can recognize what the mechanics accomplish, and, you know, like, there's lots of academia on video games and their mechanics and, like, you know, narrative and all that kind of thing, right? So it's like, if you're outside of that, you don't know what the fuck, like, and that goes both ways, because I think people are similarly dismissive of, like, you know, artsy movies, right? Like, or contemporary art. It gets a lot of bad rep because people just like don't understand it, nor do they care to. Like, to go back to Blue Period, there was one part that I thought was interesting because it brought in current events with there was the art piece that was a banana taped to a wall, yes. And after it was sold, somebody ate it, and Yatoro was just like, what? Like, he was reacting to it like, what the fuck? But then he was also commenting like, okay, so the audience response can be part of the art too, right? Like, you know, so like he was just being very open-minded towards it, where I think a lot of time that came up, a lot of people were just like, haha, contemporary art, it's so stupid and pretentious and blah blah blah. But I don't know, because I definitely think that, like, because I remember like when I was reading about like minimalism a little bit, because minimalism isn't about like having some very simple art piece and being able to draw out like, you know, fucking video essays worth of material about it. It's more about like how much can you get across with as little as possible. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a lot. But you know, it's like, but people seem to think that it always is a lot because you are able to say something about very little. Like, I don't know. It just like, I don't know. I just feel like it gets a bad rep, and I don't know enough about contemporary art to necessarily like, you know, make a better case for it. But I definitely, at least I'm not going to be dismissive towards it just because I don't like get it, I guess. You know, right. So I guess I was trying to say, like, I think both sides can be, you know, disrespectful or, you know, not open-minded enough, or lacking in the literacy, right? So you know,
sad,
I guess, to give my definition of art, which is very unhelpful and like basic to the point of, but I guess I try to think, because you know, art is an engagement between like the creator and the reader. So I'm tempted to say like a piece of art isn't just like, I do think, you know, like it probably should be made as art, right? Like if someone puts a title on it and, you know, puts it out there, then they're making it as an art, you know, piece or a statement of some kind, even if they're not particularly invested in it. But then, like, if as a reader, if someone gets something out of something, then, you know, why can't that be art too, right? Like, you know, that goes back to the intent argument. You know, and I feel like on some level, you know, both should be there, but you know, with both artistic intent and reader intent. But, you know, I don't know. It's a spectrum, I guess, is more what I was saying.
I feel like something can retroactively become art. Like when you were kind of talking about how someone else can see something and then take something away from it. Mm-hmm. I feel like when Pac-Man came out, I doubt many people were like thinking of it as a work of art. But now that we know like all the ways that it did very interesting things as a game and can mm-hmm. be used as like this idea of like how to make a game fun, or like how to like, you know, kind of like frame progression or just all these like different things that people take out of the game design of Pac-Man. I think it almost doesn't even matter if like at the time Iwatani was thinking of it as like, if he ever even thought about it as art, or like, mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I think with how much you can take away from it and how much people can argue for that game, being important and doing something extremely revolutionary for games. I don't even think it's like I don't think there's an argument to make that it's not art, even if like Iwatani said something about not thinking of it that way when he made it, or whatever you could pull from. And like, I don't think that's like just ignoring like the intent behind making it or anything. I just think like it something could surpass what like the original creator's view of it was.
I think...
especially when like I don't think people who make the art are necessarily like the best narrators of it, I guess. Like, not that they don't understand it, but more so like I do think people who make things can devalue their own things more than other people would at times. And I actually think that happens a lot, really.
No, I mean, I think we can just speak for us, where we like have our older content that we have disowned, but other people have like still like and enjoy. Right? You know, it's like, so even just like with our personal experience like that, I think that can happen. You know, so let alone like, I'm sure that's just a common thing with creators where they, you know, they make their thing. It's representative of who they are at the time. They get older. It's no longer representative of who they are at the time. Therefore, there's some level of like, you know, move. And of course, this could still happen when it's created too. But you know, I just wanted to add another example to bolster your point, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think that like part of it for me is also like I because I agree to go back a second with like what Nun you said about how like something could become art, but I think I would probably personally phrase it differently, where I'd say I think it can be recognized as art. Like, I don't think Pac-Man wasn't art when it came out. I just think
I didn't mean to make
it
sound like that.
No, I know, but it's just like people weren't recognizing it at the time as art, right? And so I think that can be a thing, right? And that helps a lot of it's important because of things like video games, right? Weren't recognized as art right away. That doesn't mean that it wasn't. It just means people weren't recognizing it as that. And then as time's gone on, people are like, oh, this is like an artistic medium. It's like you can look back and see that it is an artistic medium, you know, in Pac-Man. It's the same way that, you know, you can look back at cave paintings or cave drawings, and I'm sure a lot of them at the time they didn't consider it, you know, like, you know, the Neanderthals in the caves weren't thinking about like, oh, we're making art, but we can look back now knowing that drawing and painting is art and be like, yeah, this is art here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's like just like a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I guess this was less about like what is art, but I was just thinking, you know, when you were talking about how like how time and perspective change things. Like Shakespeare, for example, was considered like the low art when
he was a smut writer. Yeah.
Like, it's fucking like it was the MCU of the times. But the difference is that like Shakespeare, like, I guess I think, you know, time is a sieve where, you know, art just like, just in general, like culture and important things go through, and the things we still have are like, you know, general by the fact that we still like recognize them are just going to be more culturally important, recognized and looked up to for like, wow, you know, like all this classical music that we still hear in movies and television shows, right? Like Shakespeare, which is still studied, probably like I who else would be the most studied author in human history? Because like, just because like you know, you read him in high school, you read him in college, like fucking he gets referenced in anime and like other non-English speaking cultures recognize Shakespeare. Like no, J.K. Rowling is like popular, but I
was
gonna
say
studied.
Dickens.
Oh, Dickens. I heard the K sound and my brain went to Harry Potter.
I think Dickens is the only other author. Okay, actually, there's probably one other author outside of Dickens, which would be Homer.
Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. Right, but basically, okay. Yeah, so like, I guess Shakespeare is the one I was thinking of because that's the one I'm familiar with. Because I don't think I've actually read or studied anything of Homer through high school or.
You didn't have to read
like,
the Iliad and the Odyssey?
Nope.
So Homer wrote a bunch of Greek myths. The main ones that he is credited for are the Iliad and the Odyssey, which are probably, I think it's like one of the most influential pieces in Western storytelling.
I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard it stated that like no Western storytelling has been able to escape Homer and the Iliad just because of how and the Odyssey just because of how like foundational they were to Western storytelling in general.
Yeah, it's credited with coming up with the hero's journey. I'm like 99%
Yeah,
sure of that,
see,
so.
I've heard of it, but I've just never really read anything of, and I didn't do a lot of college schooling. Like, I'm sure if I did more like English in college or something like that, I would, or like I just did like a year at community college. I probably would have, eventually studied his work, but I did do Shakespeare, which is why I keep thinking, so it's a personal thing for me. But yeah, so Shakespeare is still like this upper echelon of like studied authors at the very least.
He's
right?
Yeah, I mean, he's super up there.
Right, where so where like I compared to, I brought up the MCU earlier, where obviously the MCU doesn't have that level, like it's still ongoing, right? Like if we're still talking about the MCU in 500 years, then maybe it'll be considered differently, but I don't foresee that. But time is, because I was also thinking about this with like music, because because on the radio I'll listen to older music, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is stuff that survived, because there's a lot of other music that came out in the same time period that no one gives a fuck about. Right? But then those same people who listen to these old classics that have gone through that sieve of the last few decades and go, wow, they don't make them like they used to. And it's like, there's more music coming out today than there ever has been. They do. You just need to find it, and that's the hard part. So a lot of these old musicians are still making music, come to think of it.
Now, a lot of their music is bad now. But...
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not, but, hey.
They fell off.
L plus ratio.
But yeah, so I mean, that's not necessarily, but like, I guess that's, like, what they're being recognized as art, right? Because
I think the perception of the MCU has already changed. If you look at it from 2008 when Iron Man 1 came out through like 2012 when Avengers 1 came out, like if you look at that time period, and then even now you just look at even people who hate the MCU, you rarely see people hate on Phase 1, right? And I think
mostly see it as like very like general, like MCU is ruining the film industry, or like people's perception. Like I've seen the MCU blamed for so many things. It's utterly ridiculous. Like, yeah,
but they always say the MCU as a whole, and I feel like if you ever like talk to anyone actually who doesn't like the MCU in depth, you never hear anyone hate on Phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
or they'll mention superhero movies in general, right, which is broader, obviously. But
and so I think that like that the perception on those movies has changed since they come out, so I think it's only a matter of time for people to get over themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at how people even nowadays look back at like 80s action movies, right? And it's like they were the schlock of their time, and now people just like miss, shit like Last Action Hero and
I could see when like the entire MCU ends in a long time, I guess people would do that, because it's like, I think it comes down to the people who love it the most and watched it the most having like both grown older by then, and also just like, I don't know, I feel like eventually they have more of a voice that they didn't have before. I think it happens a lot with like Pokemon games where like
like that. Yes.
Like even now, there's people who are like saying X and Y is really good, and I'm like, and it's
the Pokemon cycle continues, right?
I saw somebody say X and Y was the perfect blend between 3D and like the old 2D style. It's very funny.
Well, yeah, and see, I think the people who grow up on something are gonna have their tastes defined by that thing. So like, and then when they grow up, they'll be able to like use that creatively, or be able to put it into words in ways that the people experiencing it now won't really be able to like do, right? Like, so yeah, X and Y, like I played it, it was fine. So maybe in a few years someone will have some really interesting takes on X and Y. Because it took a while for like Gen 5 to get the appreciation that it deserved. For example, another example I was actually thinking about is He-Man. Which I've seen like one clip of a documentary on how He-Man was created. It was like, hey, we have this show for these toys, and they're like, cool. And then it's like, wait, we don't actually have the show. We need to like rush this show into production. So there was some corporate fuckery going on basically, and they literally had to rush the show into production. And they very much like threw things at the wall. Like the reason that He-Man has Battle Cat is because a different toy line had a Saber-tooth Tiger toy. And but it was bigger than the He-Man toys, so they just made it green, and and this is his mount. This is what He-Man rides on, right? So very much like it wasn't made in like I guess as art in the same way that maybe Pac-Man might not have been made as art, but like, or but it was art by inherently, and the people who grew up on He-Man and really liked it, even though you could call it's probably like trashy, schlocky, whatever you want to call it, and now like He-Man, it spawned off all these spin-offs and stuff from that audience who grew up on He-Man are now creatives, and they were able to make like She-Ra and the Princess of Power, the show that the animated show from the last few years that apparently was really good, right? So like, that can happen, even from these, like when these people, grow up on this. So yeah, I don't know, just something I've been thinking about.
I do think a big part of something being recognized as art is like if it does manage to influence all these people in creative ways, and it kind of is art, like kind of epic.
Yeah, and that also kind of goes back to like why, because like when you, even if you, it's on just on a personal level, if you're talking about something, like a music album that maybe otherwise would get forgotten, but if you talk about it and you really like it and you prop it up, then maybe it'll get more noticed in that sphere, and it'll help it from getting shifted away in that cultural like sieve that's just of time, basically, right? Like I was thinking, apparently there was some old anime on when anime blogs were happening. Part of the reason like Revolutionary Girl Utena and Legend Galactic Heroes are so like well known and loved in the English speaking sphere is because of old anime writers in blogs who were just like, hey, this show's really fucking good. Other people watch the show, and like they caught on when otherwise maybe they wouldn't, right? So just because they're more obscure, like, and lots of anime are out, why watch these? Oh well, this is why it's good, right? And obviously subtitles were harder to come by, but it happens. So but we have strayed from the topic, I guess. I also feel like the topic was pretty I don't know, we gave our definitions, so
I can promise at some point in our lives we will see people on social media complaining about the MCU and saying, oh, I wish I could have gotten to see Endgame when it came out in theaters. Those people back then were so lucky. I can promise you will see that.
It fell off after Phase 6.
Yeah. We will see crazy shit that people say about like stuff from like the 60s and 70s and 80s. We'll see that eventually with the stuff going on like the last 10
like
years.
That's because and even not necessarily with like necessarily appreciation, but I was just thinking about how like with the because I grew up through like Shrek and DreamWorks stuff and stuff, so like I got to see Shrek, like, hey, I watched this movie, that was a movie, and then I saw him become like a giant meme as the people who watched Shrek when they were really young kind of grew up and were like, wow, this was weird and different, than like I didn't remember it like this, and I'm seeing it differently now that I'm older. Or another wave that I saw was the Bee Movie, which I never watched, but then that audience who watched it as a kid, they then grew up and realized how just absurd it was, with like the premise and
the Bee and the human are like in love.
And Seinfeld, and just like so like there was basically this meme culture that just erupted for this movie that was several years old, just because the audience grew up and was like, wow, this is fucking weird, right? So just I don't know, it's just interesting to see the effect of time on things.
It's not even just like, wow, this was weird. I think two examples, one of them is Shrek, and then the other one is actually I think Cars have like huge, and Ratatouille is actually another one, have like this huge like whole stranglehold on like memes, right? Like there's this huge meme market for like those three movies. And I think all three of them come out of appreciation. Like, sure, there's a little bit of weirdness, like, oh, funny rat cook, right? Or oh, ogre man, or talking Cars,
like up there.
I would not put Ratatouille in the same level.
I actually would. I actually totally would.
I've seen some, but like because Cars, it is like there's the premise, which like there's the one cut content clip of the engine is the motor is like the soul, and if you trade there's like I don't know, it was fucking weird and a little scary.
I would say, especially on like TikTok, I see, and it's not just because like I watch them, it's just like the same people and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I see about as much Ratatouille shit as I see shit for Cars and Shrek.
Okay. I guess I don't use TikTok, so I haven't seen. I guess I would see stuff on Twitter or Discord. So
yeah, I think of TikTok as the current,
That's fair. That's completely.
TikTok's the current progenitor of I feel like a lot of memes that you see in other places, or the current place where I feel like I see the most just like shit like that, because it's just like where everyone
kind of like how 4chan was in the mid 2000s, where
right, and then Reddit was for a little bit.
Yeah. Right, and then before going out to the rest of the internet, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, a lot of like funny short videos you see on Twitter are all TikToks.
Yeah. Oh, that's my exposure to TikTok is the occasional tweet that will be just a TikTok video.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, and I think like those are out of appreciation for the movies, which is like super cool, you know. And I think it's fun to see. I like seeing fucking really silly, you know, Cars memes or whatever. Did I ever tell y'all, because you mentioned Shrek and it made me, I want to make sure I've said this before. Have I ever told you about how many Shrek the Third DVDs I had as a kid?
Why?
I had like 4 copies of that movie on DVD.
You can't
Yeah,
get
like,
enough of it.
It just happened where like our parents got us a copy to watch, because I mean, like, you know, we watch Shrek all the fucking time. And like Shrek 1 and 2, and then like both grandmothers ended up getting us a copy just like randomly for like, you know, like Christmas. It was like both of them at like different times. There was like a Shrek the Third DVD, and then there was like something else. Somehow we got like a 4th one, so we just had like 4 copies of it on DVD, and we would just watch that movie all the fucking time. It was so funny. It was like I couldn't go anywhere without just finding a copy of Shrek the Third on DVD. It was so insane.
That is funny.
How many siblings live with you?
Oh,
well, lived with you?
Now, no.
Like we're
None.
not.
No.
No. I mean, like when you were there.
you know what he meant, Vindy, you little bitch.
What?
You're just being
I mean,
pedantic.
is there one? So I mean,
Yeah,
you have
I
enough
have
copies
so it was
for one
3
for each.
siblings. It was 3 other siblings and then me. I mean, yes, but at the time, my 2 younger siblings would have been probably too young to like really put a movie in the DVD
It's
player
fine.
and stuff.
I mean, it's still just
So it
funny,
was-
the idea of that you could have one copy each if you
Yeah.
all wanted to take one. You should do that.
I
It's
don't know
your
where they are.
birthright.
I don't think we have any of those Shrek the Third on DVD. I don't think we have any of those anymore. We definitely
You
got
failed
rid
your
of all of
family
them.
legacy.
I did, actually. Even
No, it
though
is funny,
we
like-
probably lost them years ago when I had no option of whether or not we kept them. So
Or you're gonna say Crass.
I was just noticing how Shrek keeps coming up with your family history, like because you also specifically mentioned having the Shrek game on your pirated deck or on your hacked Xbox.
which Shrek game? We had like so many of them. There was the
Yeah, okay,
Shrek 2
multiple,
game,
yeah.
which was Pog. There was Shrek Super Slam, which was Pog. There was the party game, I think, also existed, which was funny. I also had a copy of Shrek the Third on PSP.
Did you have any Ratatouille games?
No, I did not.
Sad. I had the one on the Game Boy Advance.
I had the Game Boy Advance Finding Nemo game, and I had on the hacked Xbox. There was also the Cars and Finding Nemo games, and I think those were the only Pixar games I had.
I see.
I did have a Finding Nemo. Well, it's not even. I don't even think it's mine. I just found it. It's like a Finding Nemo computer game.
Is it like Learn to Read
barely
Finding
even worked.
Nemo?
Barely
No.
worked.
Cause it was so old that like I had to like install some stuff for it to work.
Was it like the
and
3D
I don't even
game?
remember what it did.
Like the console game?
No, it was
No.
it was specifically for the computer and was only on the computer.
Okay. Funny thing about the Finding Nemo console game, it was actually made by Traveler's Tales, which if you don't know, they're the people who make all the Lego games.
Oh.
They used to make a bunch of licensed games, and that's how they started doing the Lego stuff, and then that became their whole
see.
lives for fucking 15 years. All right, do we want to just move on from the topic? Because I think we've
No,
clearly
you talk
fucking-
about Disney Pixar games. True art.
I feel like we've clearly exhausted the art topic, and we're at a good point in the recording. So I say we move on to Orient.
Well,
Which
or we won't.
Orient.
No. We all watched the episode. So I thought that it was really good, actually. This was the most I've enjoyed watching an episode of Orient for the Weeb Club.
Yeah, it was actually
you
like a really
fucker.
hype episode.
Yeah.
I think a lot
shit
of the
was going
reveals
dummy
were really
hard.
on
She was hot. I just don't know what else. It was one of those episodes. Like, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't watched it. And it was
That's all-
just so fucking good that, like, actually, I just don't even, like, I just can't even talk about it. You know what I mean? That's just how good it was.
I also
fucking piece
like
of shit.
wonder what's going on with like that old man who was in the background. Like he was in the background of a couple scenes. I feel like he might be
I
a
wasn't
new
sure. Can I be
character.
honest? I thought it was Guru Shipma, but I wasn't sure.
He did have a beard. Any thoughts, Craftsdwarf? You've been quiet this session.
I hate you both. Also, I'm skimming through the episode. There was actually an old guy who was important to the episode, but
Yeah, we watched it. What are you talking about? Did you not watch the episode, Craftsdwarf?
I fucking hate you all so much. Oh my fucking god! Ah! Like, okay, let's be real for a second. None of us watched the episode.
What?
Including me, which is why but I'm being the straight man because it's funnier that way. I'm homophobic. I have to be the straight man.
What?
Oh, hey, yo.
Did he say what I thought he said?
And this is the last week I'll be on for a little while anyway, so it's like, fuck it. Let's talk about Sonobisuke.
I only watched up to episode 4, so...
That's fine. We can talk about up to episode 4.
It's fucking good.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I still have to slow down when I'm watching it sometimes, because it does that thing where I cringe out of secondhand embarrassment, so it's like I gotta pause the episode.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it does that thing where it has subs at the same time that there's something really hot, so you have to watch the scene twice so you can do it once and see what they're saying and once to see what her tits are saying.
Oh, Vindy, don't pretend that you don't see what her tits are doing the first time.
Yeah, so I gotta go back again to read the words.
Yeah, but the way you said it implied that you read it first, and we know that's a fucking lie.
Fuck you.
I'm saying because it's the same for me.
That'll actually screw me up in the manga, by the way. In manga sometimes, because like I'll switch to a page, and like if like in the bottom left-hand panel there's just big tits, my eyes immediately gravitate to it, and then I end up reading because like you
start reading from there and you're like, oh, I skipped that page.
I even try to read from there. It's just that like when I look at the panel, I immediately see all the words, and then like I just read them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Without like trying to like stop and read it, you end up reading it because you're looking at them. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? And now I got to go back to the top of the page. But like sometimes I already know what's going on. It's like, that'll fuck me up in books too, because I'll go to like the end of the chapter I'm on, just to see. Like I'll go to, like look at how many pages I have left, right? Or like I'll start a chapter and it's like, okay, I got to be in bed in like 10 minutes. How long is this chapter, right? If it's like 30 pages, probably can't read it. If it's like 10, I'll go ahead and read it and just go to bed a little bit late. And I'll just go to the end, and then just by like looking at the page, I read like some of the words on it. And I'm like, what the fuck? And spoil myself, and it's like I can't stop doing it because I am mentally ill, but also it just it happens sometimes. Sometimes you spoil shit for yourself.
But yeah, just to partly remind myself of what episodes we're talking about, because we could talk about, because episode 2 is the one where he did the measurements. Episode 3 I think was when they went shopping, and then episode 4 was when he was overworking himself trying to make the outfit. He
also played the arrow guy.
Yes, he did that, and he took extensive notes because he's a Chad, and he's like unironically he played them both purely for research purposes.
Yeah, it's fucking goated.
Well, I love the part where like he's walking outside with her, and they just casually mentioned, oh yeah, he couldn't stop ejaculating, and the people like definitely overheard and were like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, they're like high schoolers these days.
That was funny.
I love him overworking himself to get it done on time, and then she gets all upset about it. Oh, it's so pog.
Yes. And that was one of the things, because I remember we were talking about it, Vindy, somewhere. I just thought it was interesting how like the way the conflict worked out is like, there's still like an advancement there, but there's still things there that I could see being resolved in the future with him just like doing things alone, and her, because again, there's that thing brought up in the first episode where he was kind of being used, and she doesn't want to do that with him, but here he is like overworking himself just because like, hey, he actually has a friend for the first time, so of course he wants to help her and do his best, even if like that means doing an unhealthy amount of work before a deadline that she really only meant offhandedly as like it would be nice, but I really don't expect it to be there, but it was good.
He didn't understand that there's multiple events to go to, so gotta finish in 2 weeks an entire costume. I think one of my favorite parts was when his grandfather saw him playing the game in his room, and he was so casual about like I think it's funnier that they didn't make him get embarrassed or even notice the idea of him just sitting there playing that, because like to him it's not at all what the game is for, so he just doesn't even think about it when he sees him playing it, and all the noises are going off too.
Right, like he's had such a kind of like sheltered youth in a sense that he doesn't even recognize that it's like quote unquote socially unacceptable, basically, or that he should be embarrassed about it. Like,
no,
I
mean, I feel like he probably is
way.
like he would be aware of that. I just think he just didn't like it. Didn't even cross his mind. Like he didn't think about it enough to realize
that's like,
in the moment.
Because he does get like embarrassed about Martin's body, but you know, but it is kind of funny that like because he'll talk about it in public and mention and all these kind of things, and play it privately, and you know, but he just doesn't seem to think of anything of it in those moments because like you know because he is into Marin, but you know this game it's like he's purely engaging with it with research purposes, so it's like it doesn't even cross his mind that you know it's almost it seems like it's just it's good.
I like how serious Gojo is. It's really fucking good. He's so serious all the time. I love it. Silly guy.
Yeah, it's a good show, and I'm looking for. I mean, the show might be fucking over by the time I record again, but I'll finish it, and the episodes after are still really good. So
I'm already current on the
manga.
manga.
I'm definitely I'm gonna wait till the anime's done before I read it at this point.
Oh, there's a new episode today. Fuck yeah! I just remembered.
This guy just pogged out of his fucking mind.
I get to go download that and watch it later today.
I could hear the fucking how agape Craftsdwarf's mouth was when he was pogging there. He was like, "Oh." Funny.
Yep. But I don't have much to say about those episodes because it's been like over a month since I saw them.
The problem is the next episode is just so much better.
Yeah, it's a really good episode. So
sad.
Weekly recap, Nunmanji.
It's your turn.
It literally is your turn. You start. I don't care if you weren't ready. You start every week.
No, I am
start
ready.
Being ready. Okay, then go. It's your turn.
Stop accusing me. I finished Last of Us 2. I fucking got destroyed when I finished the game because
how good is the one flashback? You know what I'm talking about? Right at the end to the scene of the two characters talking that like is the entire game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's a really good scene. It's actually not like one of my favorite parts, but it did get me because like what happened was like all the stuff at the end of the game I was super into when I was playing it, but none of them made me cry when I was like watching them. But like just an hour later after finishing the game, I just started thinking about everything in the game, and I was like I was like actually bawling like about, and like I was thinking about things from way earlier and just thinking about like literally a bunch of moments in the game, and it just kept making me go on and on.
Well, I think it's really so good because I think the game almost intentionally, right, with the whole way that it just is paced and it takes you through, you're so emotionally raw by the end of it that I actually do think like it and I think it's part of why for a lot of people they might have had the reactions they did where they finished the game and they were angry or whatever, is because I think that like it does take a second of like, you know, you're so emotionally raw, you have to like come down almost, and then you really start thinking about it and you're like, oh fuck, like that's fucking good.
I wish half of the game wasn't a big spoiler, like, because I don't want to just like
everyone knows that you play as Abby.
I know, but like you don't I knew that before I played the game,
but you don't know any of it. Yeah. So okay, so I'll ask you because in non-spoiler. So do you like Abby by the end of it?
Yeah, I think she's definitely like she might be my favorite actually.
I might agree with you. I like Abby a lot. It's so funny, right? Because like even like because I knew she was coming, and you know, I'll just go ahead and say right now for some people who might not know, a lot of the things that were being leaked about the game before it coming out and things people like will say is just wrong. Like people said for a long time before the game came out and like for a little bit after that like Abby was trans. I know most people now know that that's not true, but like that just isn't true.
Oh yeah, that was a thing that people said.
And I think Abby's great. I love.
They probably they could have. I think I know how that somehow got linked to Abby for some reason.
I mean, yeah, I know
like,
how it got linked to her, but
yeah.
But
I haven't thought about that specific leak until just now. But I guess it like kind of makes sense how people ended up thinking that. It's kind of fucking funny though.
I think Abby's really good. I really like Ellie's story. As well.
Yeah, I really like both of the stories. I just thought that like by the end, yeah, I did really, really like Abby, and like fuck. I don't even know how much I can say about her.
Are you gonna say that you
I feel
really
like
the
us just talking about
Abby,
her,
or?
we would imply that at the very least she had some kind of redemption. So like
Yeah, definitely does.
her entire arc of, like, about how she kind of redeems herself and kind of she kind of just recognizes how she can, like, you know, be happy and kind of do good. Like, I thought it was, like, really great, especially with, like, the really big thing that happens between two sides on a certain location. That's what really, like, super drove it home. And, like, with Abby, I think before you play that whole like section as her, and she's just kind of like, you don't know a whole bunch about her, I guess. I almost, like, for a while was just thinking, like, you know, I'm sure it'll make sense how she kind of, like, how Ellie doesn't take revenge at some point. Yeah, I don't think that's a spoiler. I think everybody talked about how everybody made fun of Last of Us by saying, "Oh, revenge bad." So I think you kind of could infer that spoiler, that she doesn't, like, manage to get Abby. But I thought, like, how Abby kind of, how she changed through. I think the biggest thing that I really like about Abby is how in many ways she's like Joel.
Yes.
Like, her relationship with someone is very much like Joel and Ellie, and it's all. And I also just love, like, the small things about how, like, Abby plays like Joel in a lot of ways. Like, she has shivs. She's better at melee, like fist to fist kind of thing. She even has a flamethrower. Like, a lot of stuff about her is like Joel, and it's, like, it's so good.
Well, and there's even the parallel between the flashback scene near the end of the game that is my favorite scene in the game, and that parallels with Abby, right? Where you can see the two characters, like, you can see what Joel thinks reflected in in, like, what Abby thinks and Abby did, and, you know, the way that that's used to understand the characters, and it's so good. And it's why, like, because you would also agree, right, that, like, when people talk about the point of Last of Us 2 being it's that violence is bad and revenge is bad, that's just, like, not what the game's, like, kind of about at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like, taking it way further than the game itself would, because it's, like, it's not like Abby or Ellie are wrong for fighting and, like, even killing people when they have to. So it's not to say violence is bad, or, like, even revenge is, like, necessarily wholly bad.
Yeah, it's like this core idea of the game is, like, you know, the conviction people will have to protect those they care about, right? Like, at all costs. And that's not a bad thing at all, right? And so, like, that love that you have for other people is, like, inherently a good thing, even if it leads you to do maybe messed up things. It's that, like, in a situation like this, being able to keep that positive emotion for other people is just a good thing. It's something that you shouldn't deny, like, just because it might lead you to, you know, maybe not the best outcomes.
You are kind of allowed to, like, always try to have these people by your side and to, like, not throw them away. Like Ellie in her story, a lot of the, like, the stuff she was doing it was bad because she was, like, you know, with like, for example, when she met up with Jesse, and Jesse wanted to go help Tommy, and she was like, no, I have to do this so I can find Abby. That's bad. Like, and she's also, like, eventually she has this opportunity to be happy and to, like, move on, but she doesn't take it, which is just, like, how can you see that and not really understand the point? And I also just think, like, it's kind of a really weird viewpoint to see, like, what happened on that place between those two groups of people, and not, like, and just kind of, like, I don't know, have this really dismissive mindset about, like, oh, it's stupid to say, like, violence bad, or to be like, you know, like, it's just, like, I don't know, like, with how, like, horrific I guess that part is, I just don't even understand the viewpoint. If you, like, it comes down to that thing where you said, like, way earlier about, like, yeah, you like if you actually played the game, then like I couldn't imagine thinking and saying the things that you would have to say after seeing what actually happens.
Yeah,
because it's like, even though I feel bad that I'm like we're kind of spoiling Craftsdwarf, I still think even just hearing this, you won't like understand the extent of which
you won't. Yeah,
things happen.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think that like I love, because I remember another thing about the game that I think about a lot now is that like people talked about a lot, right? When I was like announced during Last of Us 2, like Last of Us 1 wrapped up so perfectly. It's like, how could you do a sequel? It's like this entire game is built off of the one open-ended thing from the first game, and it is basically an entire game to answer a moral question that exists, and it's fucking great for that, I think, actually. Because the game essentially, right, especially if you look at it, you know, parallels that are drawn, it essentially shows you both sides of like the fallout from a kind of decision you could make, and then, you know, what leads to someone making that kind of decision, you know, in a different way. And you kind of understand it a lot by the end of the game, and I think it's really powerful at doing that. And
see, at first when I was playing the game, I thought Last of Us 1 and 2 were like about equal-ish, but once you actually like play as Abby and do her whole thing, it's like, oh god, Last of Us 2 is so clear. Like, fuck. Like, I think in the first Last of Us game, it was kind of sad in a sense going over to 2 and not having like Ellie be younger and be as like adorable as she was, and like, you know, taking care of her and all that. But I think with just like how well Last of Us 2 delivers its message, it just completely surpasses any feeling that I had from like moving on from that, because like, you know, the dad-daughter thing is like really good, and it's like a really simple kind of, and it's simple but like really effective as like I guess a storytelling thing. But like I just think how far Last of Us 2 pushes the message that Last of Us 1 didn't get to, I just think it just has like so much more value for me, and it's like got me emotional.
DNU something just because I want it to be known, but I can't say it because it's too spoilery, I think. But
I ended up feeling really bad for both characters, more so Abby actually, especially just because like how much she changed, but had like all these things happen to her, and it really got me. And I actually think like they did Abby so well that I even think her group might be better than Ellie's group. Like I probably like the group in that story more. Yeah, I definitely do actually. Especially like, you know, I don't love Dina, and I think Jesse's good, but I don't know. I definitely really like Lev and Yara. Owen's
I
good
like
too.
Lev a lot. Yeah,
I like Lev a lot too. I don't know, let me check what you said. That's true. That's kind of true, but like,
yeah. I mean, it's not as much of it, but I think you get the peak of it. It's not like it isn't there. Is I guess the way to phrase it.
Yeah. But like, you're not like directly like taking care of her and seeing her like fight with you, and like seeing her grow and to help you, and then being able to play as her at the end, and like she's coming through. Oh fuck! I wouldn't say it's the peak actually.
Do you feel like, especially since you played them both back to back, because I definitely think that people underrate this. Do you think 2 made in some areas like noticeable gameplay improvements?
Yeah.
Because I think it totally did, and I think
it does.
I think people just keep saying it's the exact same gameplay as 1, but I think that there's a lot of things that make it play a lot better than 1.
Like,
you know,
I definitely do think like if you didn't like 1, it doesn't change enough to be like you'd suddenly just like it now, but it does improve upon 1. Like the simple fact that you can dodge attacks when meleeing people, and I also think balance wise, it kind of. Maybe this is just because I played 1 on hard and 2 on survivor, so that might be like part of it. But I think in Last of Us 1, as Joel, you could wail on opponents a little more than you should have been able to. Whereas in this one, since it has the dodge thing, you know, it makes you actually have to like dodge and then continue like wailing on them. You can't just like kind of BS people a little bit as you could with Joel sometimes and just like smack the shit out of them.
Feel brutal when you're hitting them. They have like weight behind them. How'd you feel about it on Survivor? Because I think it's so fun on that difficulty.
It was a lot of fun, but it also like it did really like. I feel like it is the best way to play Last of Us if you're able to, if you're able, like, you don't have to force yourself to play it on that, but like if you're able to, I think it's just like it is just kind of the best experience to have. And it did actually instill more of a fear of the people I'm up against when I'm playing on that hard of a difficulty. Like I actually did feel like a little bit of like dread going into certain parts.
Yeah.
And like I would always, at the end of an encounter, say like I was fighting like infected, I'd be like, I can't wait to just fight some human opponents. But then when like I'm dealing with human opponents and I'm done with that, I'd be like, I'd rather go do some infected now. Because it's like I just don't want to deal with whatever I just dealt with again. Even though I would say infected are probably just easier than people most of the time. Really good game. Made me cry a lot. I was thinking about it so much after I finished the game.
Yeah, it's so good.
I think it's actually just definitely a favorite game now, which I did not at all think I would think that, but it's really the Abby stuff that like connects the whole game together really well, and it's like the ending stuff like just hitting so hard.
Yeah,
and I also I think what was interesting too was just kind of like having to learn to accept who Ellie is now, in a sense. Like, since you did, like, I think the reason why Ellie's change is so much harder for certain people to cope with is just because she was this innocent child at first. Whereas with, like, Joel doing crazy, fucked up shit, he's already, like, an adult who's, like, kind of jaded to an extent. But he's not, like, he did change a lot, but it's not, like, this very different, it's less of a big change, I would say. And I think I think, whatchamacallit, I don't know. I don't even remember what I was going to say. Great game, though. You can go ahead, Vindy.
So I have a few things I think that I finished that I could talk about. But I think instead of talking about any of those, I'm just going to talk now because I want to say some, I guess, like cursory thoughts about Elden Ring.
Let's go.
And then I will just talk about it again when I finish because I haven't been able
We
to
could
play
talk about Elden Ring, yeah. I've only put in 30 hours or so. How much have you put in?
Nowhere near that.
Okay.
I have
I
17 hours
I feel
in
like,
the game.
Okay, I feel like I haven't even reached like what would be Ornstein and Smo, like the midpoint. So, yeah.
Yeah, but the Scrub Killer's the first real boss, so have fun. It's fucking good. Like, I expect... So, the biggest thing to me that just makes me laugh every time I boot up the game and play a little bit is that, like, I knew that it would obviously have similarities to Dark Souls, right? But I thought the game would take maybe more changes from Bloodborne and from Sekiro and maybe push farther in, like, a Dark Souls... Like push more towards the action that like Dark Souls 3 and then Sekiro and Bloodborne get into, and not feel like Dark Souls. The game is literally like, I think it was Joseph Anderson made this tweet, and it's fucking brilliant, which is Elden Ring is Dark Souls 4, 5, and 6.
But it does include, I feel like it does include elements of Bloodborne and Sekiro, but definitely not to a major extent.
Yeah, the biggest one is just that you have unlimited stamina, which is good. I like that. It's fun.
Or you mean when running and stuff, or
no? I just mean you have like Bloodborne levels of unlimited stamina, where I'm swinging like 20 times and dodging 5 times.
I mean, I think Dark Souls 3 had that to an extent still.
But
not to as big of a sense,
not
but,
the same,
more so than 2 and 1 at least.
Maybe so. I was playing Dark Souls 3 on stream. I have been. I'll get back to it once I probably finish Elden Ring, but like I was playing Dark Souls 3 and I was doing a strength build, which I used for the beginning of Elden Ring. And strength build in Dark Souls 3, it was literally like I was counting how many swings until I only had 1 dodge left, right? Until like I couldn't swing again without running out of stamina. And it was like 3 swings. And I was doing a strength build with a massive fucking sword for a little bit. And I was able to swing like 6 times, not even worry about it, dodge 3. So it is just even so much more different. But outside of that, I think it feels just like Dark Souls. It has the same rat models, the same basilisk models as Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that in a bad way. The models look great in Dark Souls 3. They look great in this game. The game looks phenomenal. But the game is literally, it just feels like Dark Souls with some additions that I think fit it perfectly. Like, it's so good. It's exactly what I...
No, specifically, like the Bloodborne, you use the summoning bell as, like, to summon spirits, and that's very much like how summoning works in Bloodborne. And then you have a jump button, which my friend joked about with Sekiro, and I was like, okay, that's funny, fuck you.
Yeah.
So, because as we know, Sekiro invented jumping.
That actually is true. Well, it invented having a dedicated jump button, because there is jumping.
At least when it comes to the FromSoft main these games, yeah. Which is a joke, but it's still funny to say it that way. But it's literally a Souls game with a few of the names changed, and like, it's not Souls, they're runes, right, and that kind of thing. They're fingers for summoning and stuff instead of whatever the fuck the summon signs or
you still have a flask. It's not an Estus flask, but it is a flask.
Right, but it's also an open world game, and you have a horse, right?
Yeah,
so,
Patches shows up. Did you find him?
I found him.
Okay. There's so, and that's not to say that that's a problem at all. I actually am very happy that it feels like an open world Dark Souls, because it fits it so well, actually.
No, they just do a really good job of adapting the Souls elements into an open world thing. It's because they still have like locations that I feel like are normal Souls, dungeons-esque things, right? Like some of the castles you find, like the Stormville Castle or the Morn Castle, are very much like, hey, I just walked into a Souls level, basically, right?
Yeah,
like,
and some of the dungeons and underground areas are like mini ones.
Those remind me a lot of the Bloodborne Chalice dungeons, just the way that they're shorter, and especially the catacombs are structured the same way, where you have to like hit a switch to open the boss door and then fight the boss. It's basically like a best hits of Souls games, pretty much, and it's also just like it's I don't know how it's big. It is massive,
dude. Every time, because I have some friends who've been playing it like nonstop, right? And every once in a while they'll stream it, and I'll hop into their streams like in Discord. They'll open their map. Because the game does the thing where it doesn't actually show you how big the map is at the start. When you unlock a new area, everything else that you saw that took up the entire map screen is smaller now. They'll show it. Their maps are like 3 times as big as mine, and I'm already like 17 hours in. I haven't explored everything. Because like you beat a major boss and like basically unlock like a second area, right? I spent so long to go into that second area because I was trying to find every boss in the first one.
Right.
Because I would not be surprised if this game had like triple-digit bosses.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't complain about it the same way that like people complain about like Dark Souls 2 having a bunch of bosses, because this game, it's not like they're all required bosses, right?
With Dark Souls 2, it's structured like a regular Souls game, so a lot of the bosses, which especially stands out for the ones that just aren't that interesting or good, are in your path, and and a lot of them are optional, sure. But, especially going through your first time, you don't know that. Where in this game, it's very clear, like, okay, well, there's this one catacombs that's fairly short. I don't need the boss.
Beaten path. The runes aren't telling me I need to go this way.
You don't need to beat this boss. He's optional, right? Like, and there's way more optional bosses. I'm curious as to what a speedrun of this game is going to look like, because that's the thing. It's so Vindy. Do I want to spoil it? Do you know about the underground?
I've been in the underground once.
Yeah. It's presumably as big as the overground.
Let's go. Fuck
I haven't even gotten no, my friend got one map down there, but I found 2 locations underground, and they are, really far apart, and I'm just like I'm just looking at how fucking massive the overall map is. It's scary. It's so fucking big. I'm afraid. I put in almost 30 hours, and I feel like I haven't even hit like the equivalent of Anor Londo, basically. Like, maybe I've seen it, but there's still so much other things that I could do. Like
Breath of the Wild, but good?
I was just about to say and actually explain it, because what I've been saying about this game,
I haven't played Breath of the Wild, so I can't make the comparison.
Since maybe my first 10 hours, which I mean I've only played 7 more since. But like,
yeah, I was about to say
this is the game that, like, Elden Ring is what people say Breath of the Wild is for me. I think that the game, It does some of what, and I don't think it's intentional, by the way. I don't think they're like aping Breath of the Wild like, Genshin Impact and Immortals Phoenix Rising did. I think it's just an open world game where they took the exact same things that they've been doing in the Souls games for over 10 years now and put that into a much bigger, more open world. But like the biggest difference for me between Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring is I'm playing Elden Ring and I actually feel rewarded for exploring. Because if you just explore sometimes, you will find, and keep in mind, weapons don't break, so it's actually nice to find a good weapon. You'll just find like broken shit. Like you'll just find like I found like a spear +7 from a boss I killed in a cave. You'll just find shit exploring that's like really fucking good. And you either find a good item or you find a boss, which is what I want to fight in Souls games anyways, right? So that's like great, I love, by the way, people might hate on this. I love the stakes. I love the little checkpoints at bosses, especially for some of the bosses. Yes. Those boss runs, I would just not fight bosses, like the ones at the end of the catacombs, if I didn't have a stake to go to.
That's like the stakes are definitely like an easy way for them to basically do what they've always been doing and making the run to the boss like as painless as possible. Because if you're stuck on a boss, you don't want to have to go through the enemies before him every single fucking time.
Right, and sometimes the enemies are so annoying to run past, you end up having to drink a flask or two just to get to the boss. Like especially like Artorias is one where it's so long and it's so easy if you're not aware the entire time. Yeah. You'll take 2 hits. And then it's not like you have to be aware of the entire boss run. Now you have to be like twice as focused because now you're fighting Artorias.
And the worst one in the entire franchise, or the worst ones in the franchise, are in Dark Souls 2. And, like Iron Keep, where there's just like that one room before the Smelter Demon where there's just a shitload of pretty strong knight guys that like you have to bait out one at a time because they're really annoying. Good luck fighting 2 of them, and the Smelter Demon's optional. So do you want to actually fight this fairly hard boss, or do you want to go past him?
They all aggro you at the exact same time, so you literally
if you're not extremely careful, right?
Demon.
Yeah.
So the only way to actually fight the Smelter Demon and not just beat him in like your first try or something is to actually wipe the enemies in that area so they don't respawn.
It's really bad, and that's not the only area in the game that's like that.
You tried to go fight that chariot where you got to cross that bridge and go up the big chariot in the circle room. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember the boss. I've just I feel like I went there later, so I feel like I struggled less with that.
Oh, okay.
Where I was trying to remember, there's another place. It's like it's a very swamp area where there's like you can only move around on these small stone paths under the water, and there's like lots of enemies, so it's like it's the same thing where you can't not fight the enemies as you get to the boss, which just kind of like so having some dungeons and locations, they're very much like just there are shortcuts still, even though they're not as common as the other Soul games, I would say, but they're still there sometimes. But they have the stakes as a way to like, okay, here you go, you just want to fight the boss again, go fight the boss again, you're good, and it's cool.
And I would be very remiss if I didn't talk about how perfect the horse is. I fucking love bosses where you have to be on the horse. I love horse combat bosses. Getting into that rhythm of like, and I've never played a game where I've really been like, and it's because it's a Souls game, so you will just get fucked and your horse will get fucked. But like the way when you're fighting on your horse, it's about doing these sweeps and coming through on a sweep and hitting, and then going around in a circle and coming back around, right? Like that's how you kind of have to fight. Is almost like a fighter jet, right? Like you have to come in on these raids, come in, hit them, and get out, right?
Before you get fucked, right?
Yeah, before you get fucked, and save your like dash to use as like a dodge. I mean, it gave me my like Calamite got BTFO by the dragon I fought on horseback. That shit was fucking awesome. There's a big tree that oozed everywhere that was fucking awesome. The Tree Sentinel, which I don't feel bad spoiling the name, like the first thing you see in the game, is fucking awesome. The game's just really fucking good so far. And the 2 story bosses I've done have been really fun. Especially the first story boss, I struggle with a little bit more. And
Margit
so like
the Fell? Or
Margit.
Okay.
So that was like my first time this game. It's my only time so far having that boss where it's like I would compare it to like beating Owl or beating Ishin or beating Nameless King or beating Artorias or beating ONS or beating, like those really hard bosses or those bosses that give you a minute where you beat it and it's like your fucking blood's pumping. You're like, let's fucking go.
Also, yeah, just to give a little, so I've beaten the exact same amount of story bosses as Vindy, and I have 13 more hours in the game.
You've only beaten those first two?
No, I haven't gotten. I mean, I think I know where to go to fight more, but the game's just so big.
So you fought Margit,
and I fought Godric.
Okay, so you did go fight Godric as well. Okay.
Yeah, so I've beaten the same amount of story bosses as you, is what I was saying.
Okay.
Like I've mostly been exploring Caelid, which are the red swamps to the east of the starting area. And
Caelid is fucking hard.
Oh, I see. Like, no, it's brutal, and I kind of that's why I kind of like it, as because like riding around for the first time, it was just like kind of legitimately unsettling. Of just like how, because it's this like there's like coral and barnacles and shit, but also this horrid poison and the red sky and these like disgusting monsters. Like it's such a contrast to Limgrave. That like I was kind of like I want to explore here because this is horrifying and I'm kind of digging it, and yeah, it was pretty brutal, but I've done a lot of exploring there, and then there's I think the story is actually sends you up to the northwest, which is fuck, I forget what it was called, but it's yeah, you'll see. But
yeah, I think I'm gonna have to play the game through twice, not only because I want to do my first run without looking anything up, and then I'll do a second one. I have some friends, and I've seen some clips of people doing magic, and it looks so fucking fun in this game, actually.
Like, I keep getting spells and shit. I'm like, I wish I had picked magic.
Well, you can apparently respec.
Okay, ooh.
I had someone tell me that they unlocked respecking and didn't do it, but that it's decently close to where I am, which I assume means it's probably a little bit more decently close to where you are.
It's probably something that, like...
It's story progress.
Okay, gotcha. So, yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So, what I really mean by that is you're probably closer to getting it because you're probably closer to being like, all right, I guess I'll move on now. You know what I mean? But no, it's fucking good. Another thing I wanted to bring up, because it's really funny that I keep seeing it, is I've seen so many, because this game is selling super well, right? It's probably gonna be
that's cool.
One of the best selling games of the year.
I do also
going
know it's
to win
also,
game of the year everywhere.
Probably one of the most returned games of the year.
Is it really?
No, that was a joke. I just because I saw a tweet of someone that's already like used copies already showing up because like I think people are picking it up, and I do think like if you haven't played any other Souls game, you're going to struggle more so because I feel like it's just
it's harder.
Like yeah. Well, just because like a good example I was thinking of is like so in the first Limgrave, like right before you get to the Storm Hills or shit, I forget what they're called. The second, the northern part of the Limgrave.
Are you talking about that outpost that's like fucking hard, actually?
Yeah, there's an outpost with a bunch of knights, and then after that, there's like the gate with a giant, and I'm just just thinking about that area, like even just that one big knight enemy. He's comparable. I'd say he's comparable to the Silver and Black Knights from the first Dark Souls, who you don't fight until, or like the Black Knights are like an optional enemy who will just fucking one shot you, and the Silver Knights are a common enemy in the middle part of the game. And here's just this one, like he's not a mini boss or anything. He's just like roaming around, and if you are not cautious, he will just like fuck you up while you're trying to fight other guys.
Well, and I'm very confident the game either expects you to stay on the horse where you're much safer, or to, especially that part with the giant where he's throwing shit. I think the game expects you to like dash through there, which is what I did. I went back
my friend
and killed
did
everyone
that,
there after killing Margit. But
right, yeah. But that's just an example of like because they definitely get like I think that's why the tree sentinel is there at the beginning too. Like, hey, you don't have to fight everything you come across. Like this guy is here and he's really strong to tell you go somewhere else, do something else, later. And come back later. Right? Yeah. Like it's very deliberate with that, and
that's the lesson that I think most people learn is like, oh yeah, But I was going to get to that because there's another thing that I've seen a lot of people on like TikTok who is like their first Souls game doing,
right?
Which is grinding. I've seen so many TikToks of people being like, this is the best way to grind. This is the best place to grind. I have never in my life for a second considered grinding in a Souls game. Because first of all, I think the games give you so many souls.
Well, but if you die, you lose all those souls. So you need to grind. Like that is a level of like time and progress lost if you're not as good as the game, right? Like I think to use a non-Souls game example, my mom had struggled a lot with Link Between Worlds, which if you haven't played the Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds, how the items work is you actually rent the items from a shop, and you go to the dungeons that correspond to those items, and that item will help you beat it. But if you die, you have to re-buy the item or re-rent the item until you get the opportunity to rent them out permanently, or buy them basically. But my mom would die a lot in Zelda games because she's not she's not as good in
Right.
some ways. So
Old woman hands, yeah.
Yeah, so she struggled a lot with that game specifically because the failure was more punishing for her, and I think a lot in the Souls games can be like that too. Like even because I died a few times, I lost a few thousand souls, and I was like, shit, that was levels I could have had, right? And there are workarounds like with the golden runes that you use as consumable souls, like that they've always had to so you can save those and stuff. But I can see why some people like would struggle more with that. But at the same time, you also don't need levels as much in general, like mechanically, just because like equipment I think is a bit more important. But levels for attributes give you the ability to use equipment, right? So it's like, but yeah.
Well, yeah, because I was gonna say the reason I personally think that like when I see it, grinding isn't necessary, even if you lose like 20,000 souls. The game is ramped in a way and gives you souls at enemies in a way, in such a way where it kind of expects you to lose souls, right? Because like as you go farther in the game, enemies give more and more souls, bosses give more and more souls, and you kind of reach this point where you're getting, where like you just like have an amount of souls late game that's like a paltry number early game, right? Like the game is designed with the way it gives you an XP in a way where you're always going to be about scaled where you need to be, no matter what, because if you're too low level for an area, by killing a few normal enemies, you get the souls to level up to a normal level for that area.
Oh no, yeah, like I actually, because there's like the there's teleportation stuff that'll just warp you across the map basically, including teleportation traps, which is very fun. But I was teleported to one area and I was like riding around my horse and there was some smaller, relatively weak enemies and I killed them and they gave me like 1,000 souls each, which is about as much as the big trolls in the first area will give you. So I was like, hey, if if grinding is isn't that big of a problem because you just. Yeah, and you just go to an area where there's enemies strong because the small enemies you could probably beat, right? Even if so it's not. Yeah, again,
it makes me laugh because like me and everyone else I know who've played Souls games don't really ever grind, right?
No,
like
right.
Everyone I know has the opinion if like yes, there have been bosses I've come to in this game where I'm like I'm doing like 50 damage a hit, I'm good. I'll come back later, right? But after a couple attempts on this boss. Most of the time, it's not that, I'm not high enough level. It's,
I need to get good, right?
I'm dog shit. And it's so funny to me because I'm seeing people grind to absurd levels. Kraus, I'm not just talking like grinding a couple. I'm talking like seeing people that are grinding like to the 70s and 80s. They're like, here's how to get 1 million souls in an hour of farming.
Oh, boy.
So, this is like a huge thing I'm seeing. Like, TikToks with like hundreds of thousands of likes and people. It's like, these are people who, this is just their first Souls game. And it's really interesting to me that, like, the thing is just like, yeah, I'll just go grind. It's like, do you not want to just beat the boss and feel cool? Because I don't want to 3-hit the boss. I want to fucking go toe-to-toe with them for like 6 hours and come out the victor and be like, let's fucking go.
No, yeah, it is funny going back to some of the older bosses, the bosses that I missed or whatever, and then like, oh, actually, going back after a while and like, I struggled against you before, and now you're not actually that much. But yeah, that's not like that, again, that's not grinding. I'm still like playing the game normally in other areas, but yeah, no, it's been really fun so far, and I have stuff to do today, so I can't just go and play it later immediately after recording.
I have work, so I have a couple days off work, and I'm either going to go super degenerate into finishing the 3rd Stormlight Archive book, or I'm going to go super degenerate into Elden. We'll see.
Well, the problem is, what are you talking about next week? Because especially if because I won't be here. I don't know, so I don't have to worry about it.
Well, even if I go super hard into Elden Ring, I won't finish it next week. Like, there's that game's going to take like 100 hours.
Well, I know, but it'll take away time from other things you would be able to talk about.
That's true.
Because if you only play Elden Ring for the next 7 days, well, I guess you could talk more about Elden Ring, but
talk about Elden Ring every week. It's okay.
Every week until you finish.
It's the only thing I'm doing with my life.
Okay,
anyway, Craftsdwarf, what's your?
Wait, before Crafts goes, I just wanted to say something that I forgot to say, which is like probably one of the biggest compliments I could give The Last of Us 2. Is I think I haven't felt as bad for a fictional character as I did after finishing Last of Us 2 since the last time I reread Naruto.
Oh my god. What character?
In Last of Us?
Yeah.
Abby.
Okay.
Ellie too, for sure, but more so Abby.
I was going to ask, would you consider it like one of your favorite games?
Yeah, you said that.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
I'm more sure about it being a favorite game than
okay, that's
you know,
cool.
KH2 or like some other
Oh, wow.
recent stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm going to move on to my backlog. As promised, I am talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure parts 3 through 5. So yeah, Stardust Crusaders, I definitely don't think it's as interesting as some of the other JoJo parts, but I actually enjoyed myself a lot with it. I guess I don't want to spend too long on each individual part, but and I think when I get to like the later parts, I'll like talk about them in comparison with each other in some ways. So like one of the things that stood out to me about part 3 that I was surprised that I liked so much was I just like the Crusaders and them as a group. I was surprised how much I like them, and because I think why or like the moment that really clicked for me was during the Oingo Boingo battle, quote unquote, where here's these guys with a stand that allows them to tell the future, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna fuck up the JoJos by letting the future just happen and not doing it, just doing what we're told to do. And it never goes well, and it's like it's a funny encounter, obviously, because like they don't even know it happens. But there's a part specifically where one of them, I forget which one's which off the top of my head. He has the disguise power, and he's disguised as Jotaro, and then Polnareff's like, hey Jotaro, do that trick where you put 5 cigarettes in your mouth, curl them with your lips to put them inside your mouth, and then drinks wine, and then don't like extinguish the cigarettes. And like obviously he can't do it because Jotaro is a fucking crazy person. But what I like what they clicked about that moment for me, and what also clicked a bunch of the other like interactions they'll have, is that like these fuckers are on a road trip for so fucking long, and they just have to come up with the dumbest fucking shit to entertain themselves and their friends, basically. And just that like that element to them and their relationship, or just like the levels of understanding they'll have. Like another moment is when they're underwater and Polnareff or signs I can see in your underwear, and Kakion like understands it, and then like do the fist bump thing. Like they just have these little dumb moments like that. And it just I was surprised at how much that endeared me towards them as a group. So yeah, they were really fun. And Dio also just has like he's still really good. And he just has this presence. Like when he shows up, I was like fuck. And I was also thinking about because last time I think, or no, it was before with the spoilers. I brought up how I think memes are more likely to ruin my experience with something than spoilers are. And I realized with JoJo that didn't actually happen. Well, actually, okay, it kind of happened in that I don't like how the colored translation, because I'm reading the colored version just because I want the actual character names and stand names and stuff, which the official wouldn't have. The problem with reading the colored version is that they preserve some of the memes, which I think is fine in some contexts if the meme is still like, readable. Like I think Dio saying, how do you remember how many breads you've eaten in your life? Like, okay, it's a little awkward, but I understand what he's saying. But when Koikichi says, get a feeling so complicated, that just doesn't make any sense in English. Like, don't leave that in there. Like, translate it into actual
Craftsdwarf.
I know, but I'm just not a fan of them doing it like for like all of them, I guess. Like you could still just go read the Dwang translation. It's still on the internet. You can find it. It's so I like I guess I understand in some cases, but I just feel like overall it's like I'd rather just have a close. So in that case, like yeah, next time if I ever read JoJo again, I'm just gonna read the official translation. Just because it'll be a better translation overall, even if it has the name changes, which I wanted to avoid this time. But yeah, that's a little gripe. But yeah, no, I guess as far like because I was gonna mention because one moment that I thought was really fucking cool, which another thing I want to say, Jotaro is just really cool. Like I was surprised that like I liked him as much as I did. And maybe what also helped me frame him is because Vindy, you pointed out before I reread it, was that he's just autistic and he's just not good at expressing his emotions. Like which is established in chapter 1 where we see how his mom sees him because his mom understands him. Like that's how he actually is.
That's what people don't get is they think it's just a joke about like Jotaro's mother like not
idolizing him or not, but she does understand him and he understands her, right?
That's the thing that they misunderstand is that scene is actually like serious characterization for who he is and how he acts, right?
Right, because he is just kind of like a hard ass like tsundere, right? Like because even the interaction with because like he recognized that his mom was sick. because the stand was affecting her, and like but she's also like protecting, like so there's like a mutual like recognition there, but also like he does sort of like, okay, well, I trust my mom, so she's got it, but then she did not get it, right? Like so yeah, I just ended up also liking Jotaro a lot. But going back to the memes and stuff, was like there's the moment where like I can't hit you unless I get closer, and then they're walking towards each other with that that it's been parodied so many times, but then like even in the context, I just was like, I was like getting hyped at the fight. It was just really cool.
Yeah, he's kind of the king of one-liners. I will give him that.
No, Jotaro's really, I like Jotaro quite a bit, and part 3 in general, I was just surprised at how much fun I had.
And I think that like the and I don't know, I hate saying this because it's like it comes off as like I'm diagnosing this character, but like the autistic part of him, right, also works with his really cheesy, silly one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Because
he's
like
got
of course
Moe.
that's what he would think is like cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, I like Jotaro a lot. My thing with him is always, and maybe I'd feel differently if I fully reread JoJo's. My thing with him is I feel like I like him more in parts 4 and 6 when he's in that more administrative like
mentor position.
Yeah,
I can see that. I still like him in part 3. I do like him in both parts 3 and 4, but okay. I haven't really thought about which part I like him in better, because he's just, I guess in my mind he was just Jotaro, but no, that's understandable.
He's also wearing a cool pimp uniform in part 4, and I fucking love that white outfit he's got.
Yeah.
He's so drippy.
But yeah, speaking of part 4, it's my favorite JoJo part so far, even accounting for Jojolian. Like, I think it's just really fun, actually. And like the characters are just really enjoyable and good. Like it's the slice of life part in a sense. I also just really vibe with the general message, because I think it's the part that I think focuses on the bizarre part of the title the most, just by virtue of its idea of like accepting weirdness and your own individual bizarre nature, I guess. And where because I noticed a lot of the antagonists, like if they're not like Kira, where they're completely trying to suppress their weirdness to the world at large. A lot of them, or at least some of the early ones, I noticed that like they tended to envy other characters. Like Kobayashi, I think was his name, the scam artist guy. When his mom, or when Koichi's mom, or what's his name, Koichi. Yeah, Koichi. That name's I don't know why my brain was not working. Yeah. When his mom trusted him. After he used the stand power, Kobayashi mentioned that, like, my mom would never do that, or something like that. Or then there was also the Hazamada, I think, the guy with the puppet stand, who was like he was a real fucking creep. But when he made his stand imitate Josuke, and Josuke was getting like girls' attention, and people liked him, and he was just getting really envious of that attention and stuff. And I just noticed that was a recurring thing with a couple characters. So just But and the stand battles are just like, they're varied in really cool ways. And I vibe with the ideas, and the characters are fun and enjoyable. It's just like it's just a super solid part. Part 5, unfortunately, I just didn't vibe with as much.
No.
I think I just don't enjoy the characters as much. Like, I like the ideas, I like the stand battles, but I'm just not super invested in the characters. Even on the reread, like I don't think they're bad or anything
so far.
It's like tied with part 2, probably.
I'm crying.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think I realized one thing that maybe, because I think because the stand battles are good, but they're also like really long. So there were less moments of like the downtime, where like part 3 is very episodic, but because there were so many stand battles, like there were more moments of that downtime in between where the group is just like hanging out and chilling. Like part 5 definitely had that, but it didn't quite have as much with that, so I don't think I got as much out of that. But I don't know. I do like how the ideas came together again with the sleeping slaves and such, and accepting one's fate but also not being bound by it. Which is just fitting with just the ideas of JoJo in general. And I also read Purple Haze Feedback, which was the spin-off light novel by the author of Book Pop Phantom, which it focuses on Fugo, who from part 5, and I think it does some cool things to expand on part 5, and I think especially Vindy, if you really like part 5, you should probably try to read Purple Haze Feedback at some point, just because I think it expands on some things and takes some certain ideas and runs with them basically in really cool ways. But I just I didn't love the novel, but it was fine.
Yeah, well, I feel like for me, what the way you talked about part 3 is how I feel about part 5. I love the cast in part 5. They're all so silly, especially like because Abacchio is like the closest to being a straight man. But when like Fugo's there, like that trio of Fugo, Mista, and Narancia are fucking amazing. I love them. I love Mista so much. He might have one of my favorite stands in terms of just like entertainment value. Like Sex Pistols are so funny. I think Narancia is great. I think they have like my favorite of like bigger casts. Obviously, they have like my favorite stands as well. Like I think Sticky Fingers is fucking awesome.
No, yeah, I do think the stand battles are like really good, and there's a lot of like interesting encounters they have.
Yeah, like Aerosmith is cool. Purple Haze is cool. Abacchio's stand is so like awesome. And it's funny because the way you feel about part 3, where it's like, cast endears me.
Just to bring up the stands, like, yeah, the part 3 stands aren't as interesting because, especially in general, like just because by nature of like Araki, this is the first instance of us seeing stands at all, right? So of course they're like Silver Chariot. He's fast, kinda, and he has a sword. Like, it's not the most interesting stand. But I guess another thing I wanted to say about the stand battles is because I do think Part 5 has really good stand battles. I do think it's kind of lacking in variety. In that, like, they're all kind of focused on the action or maybe a chase or something where I think like there's no Darby the Gambler. Or, part 4, of course, I think has the most variety where it's able to have this, or the straight up battles are just kind of a minority. Like, I feel most of them are more like, odd situations than they are
part
like outright
is the
stand
most
battles.
like mystery part. I mean, like it is like Scooby-Doo, that's what everyone says, and it's because so much of it is just this is like every like part's like a mystery as to what's going on, right?
So that's just I think something that I did like the stand battles in part 5, but I just realized that they just had less variety. I was like, I think that might be part of why I enjoyed these other 2 parts more.
I just think the way the fights play out in and of themselves is and maybe not necessarily the way they play out, but the actual like stand mechanics you get are so unique. And so, don't get me wrong, sometimes I think Part 5's fights are taken to a little bit of a ridiculous level. Like when Butcher
Bruno.
When he's like underground with Sticky Fingers, right? And he's like just punching the fucking ground to make like a bunch of tunnels to tunnel himself through the ground in the like second half of the Green Day fight or whatever, in the other one that they're fighting at the same time as Green Day. But I just think there's so many like stand battles that are so memorable to me, right? Like there's the one on the train with both the aging and the fishing hook. Then you have the one with like when they're on the plane, the Notorious B.I.G. is fucking great. Everyone loves the Green Day fight. So I just think like some of those the one where Narancia is getting smaller and so he's like having to use Aerosmith on like the street, I think is really good. Vanilla Ice, obviously. Also, and this is a large part of it, I think Part 5 is
Vanilla Ice. Wait, is it
not Vanilla Ice?
Isn't Vanilla Ice Part 3?
White Album. I'm sorry, White Album.
Okay, thank you. I was like, well,
I was wrong. It's White Album. It's White Album. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, I just love so many of the fights. Also, okay, you could contest me very well with Part 7, and I would argue that that's the best JoJo's part, so it's fine. I think Part 5 is the gayest part. It is so gay, and it is so funny how the anime is so wide. There's like
I was about to say. Well, I was gonna ask because I've only read I read Part 5 like in shit scans years ago, and then I reread it recently with the colored scan. So I do wonder if maybe the anime will endear me more to the cast in a way that it hasn't yet. I think
I like the Part 5 anime a lot. I think the voice cast is really good. So I watched it weekly, so I had to deal with some rough visuals that are fixed by now.
Okay, so maybe I only watched the anime. I only watched it once up to Part 4. So I kind of just like didn't watch Part 5 I haven't touched 6. So maybe I'll watch it one day.
And it enhances the gay factor because it'll do some gay. I mean, Mista and I mean, first of all, there's like the first scene that you see Gold experience where Giorno's like sensually holding his stand that I can never get over. But there's like a joke about like Giorno giving Mista a blowjob that like ends an episode where like people, it looks like that's what's going on, and the other members of the gang thinks that's what's going on, and then it cuts to the ED, which the first words of the ED for part 5 are, sometimes, or when I close my eyes, I get so horny. So it goes from Giorno giving Mista a blowjob to this sensual R&B ED about being horny. It's so perfect, actually.
Okay, I'll definitely, like, it won't be for a while probably, but I will probably have to watch part 5 at some point.
Also, I mean, the anime is worth it, I think, even if you don't watch the whole thing. The Ari Arrivederci in the train fight is fucking awesome in the anime. And then the end of White Album and Green Day. I think the anime actually slaps so hard in those scenes. Mainly because Giorno's theme is a fucking goat.
I see. Good to know. No, well, because it's actually like, it was funny because my friend has like, he has different rings or sounds for his phone based on who texts him and whatever. And so one of them was like the Doppio making the ringing sound. But I didn't recognize it. I didn't recognize it because I hadn't watched the anime, but I just reread the part, so I was like, damn it, I didn't understand that reference.
What did you think of Doppio, by the way? Because I feel like people don't like him as the villain. Or I guess just, or you mean the part 5 villain as a whole.
Oh, in general? Like, I think he's perfect for the ideas of the story, obviously. Overall, I mean, Doppio is entertaining. Where I guess the boss himself doesn't, I guess personality-wise doesn't stand out as much, but, he still has presence, and King Crimson is a wild ability, and I definitely think people, quote-unquote, don't understand it just because of, like, well, partly because it's funny, like, because, like, that 1 minute long video of the guy ranting about how he doesn't understand how King Crimson work is really funny. Like, really funny. Tell me how it works. It's just like, I don't get, like, it's just the way it progresses as he starts out like already angry, and then he gets like frothing, raving mad by the end of it over the course of a minute. Like, it's a funny video. But yeah, I definitely think part of the reason it wasn't understood very well was because of the terrible translations. Because I think I mean, it's a weird ability for sure, but I think it's, not too hard to understand what it does. And I have heard enough explanations of it that I got it, but he's good. The main antagonist. Yeah. And so yeah, and I'm eventually going to read. I still need to reread part 6 and part 7, and so I'm looking forward to that. And I guess well, at some point, like no time soon, watch part 5 and probably part 6 too, because why the fuck not? I don't know. Yeah. At that point. But I'm probably not going to go back and rewatch the other parts, at least not for a good long while. I wouldn't. So.
I don't think I will ever be able to go back and if I go, I could see myself rewatching part 4. I could see myself rewatching maybe parts 1 and 2. I don't think I can ever rewatch part 3. It's so
really long. Yeah, because I think the part because I like part 3, but for 50 episodes, yeah, that's quite a bit.
And I know that like there's a lot going on, but some of those stand fights probably could have been 1 episode. Like, let's just be dead ass.
Yeah. The only one I remember being 1 episode was the sun fight, which is a really simple fight, which makes sense. But
it feels like every stand fight's a 2-parter just to have like that 2-parter. But it gets so draining to watch 50.
Yeah.
Because
I think I watched it. I think I might have watched it weekly. So I'd have to double check to be sure. But I wouldn't have had that issue. But I can understand not wanting to watch it again. But and also I think I watched it weekly because I remember like the censoring, like Jotaro, they can't show Jotaro smoking because he's 17-year-old, so they'll just like black out half of his face while he's smoking.
That is the biggest problem with JoJo, because the censoring is in every part of JoJo's, and
right. So it's like
just like the biggest problem.
You kind of have to wait for the blue. Well, even part 6.
Yes, there was definitely censoring in part.
Unfortunate, because I was wondering if they'd get away with that because it was Netflix instead of typical TV
Maybe there was
stuff.
No, there was stuff that I'm positive was being. Yeah, they're definitely.
Okay.
I only saw like a handful of episodes, but yeah, there was definitely some censoring.
Okay, but
part 6 also does start kind of gruesome.
Gotcha.
Because remember, there's like she climbs in like the rat carcass.
Yeah, I remember some of it. God, it's been so long since I touched part 6. I need to get on that eventually, but yeah, JoJo's still good. I still like it. Anyway, so next week I'll be reading and watching stuff, but I won't be on the podcast. So
Nunmanji. What do you think you'll have to talk about next week? Nunmanji.
He hates us.
Who are you?
It's gonna be weird being on.
There's gonna be a 2-hour podcast next week that's just me saying things and then being like, "Nun, what do you think about that?" And he just says, "Who are you?" for 2 hours straight.
I don't know. Maybe Wonderful 101. I don't fucking know.
Ooh.
I have no idea either. I think there's a very high chance that I probably don't finish anything next week.
I mean, I would just say if you want to like really like okay, like maybe watch the rest of the original Star Wars trilogy and then dig into
I do only
Elden
have
Ring.
one movie left because I did watch episode 5.
Yeah, so watch episode 6 and then just play Elden Ring and then you'll be good.
Yeah, and then I could talk about Who
like
knows?
just be
I'll do
try to
something.
be just be calculated with it because if you watch stuff,
never mind. I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I'm dumb as shit. I'm going to see the Batman on Sunday with my brothers.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely going to talk about how Robert Pattinson changed film by being Batman and just being unbelievably attractive while being Batman.
I've heard like one opinion of it. And it was like 10 out of 10. So at least one person likes it.
I've been very excited for that movie since it got like announced. So.
Okay, I might watch it if I hear more good, especially if you like DM me if it's good or not, and I'll definitely like that'll be like a fair percentage of like whether or not I go
probably
see it
tell you
theaters.
it is because it sounds so much like a movie I'm gonna vibe with. But yeah, I'll let you know.
I mean, I guess like I'm not gonna be here next week, but I also could have talked about Konosuba or which I finished. I watched the movie for the first time last night, and so I finished rewatching that, or I might have also talked about Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger, which was the recently concluded Super Sentai season, but oh well. Goodbye. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, adios, muchachos. Nun and I will see you next time.
You're so excited to get me off the podcast, damn.